Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About It. This is Taylor, your host, and I hope that you all are getting through your week thriving. I hope you are taking space for yourself, that you are prioritizing yourself, that you are allowing space for rest. All of the things, I'm sending all of you some positive healing vibes. And before we get into today's episode, I wanted to share something that I've been doing pretty consistently that has actually helped me feel quite good. And I know sometimes affirmations, in this episode we will get a bit more into mental health, but I know sometimes affirmations feel a little like frou-frou-y, like, oh, what's it really doing? But I have found myself for many months now in a scarcity mindset. And I've unpacked, how that is a consequence of white supremacy. And if I want to be anti-racist, if I want to, unpack the messaging that I've internalized throughout my life, that I have to step away from a scarcity mindset. So when I've started to feel that kind of like, money, a lot of money's going out, just stressing about money, stressing about, just community, right? Just feeling like things are scarce, like I'm going to lose things, or there's not enough of things, right? Like there's not enough energy. There's not enough, anything really. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you can feel it. You can feel this just, there's not enough. I have to, this like urgency, right? To acquire, to gain. And I've had to stop myself. And the thing that I keep coming back to is this one word that I kid you not, just started saying randomly throughout the day. If I get that feeling, that scarcity feeling, or if I'm just kind of processing what's happening, I'll just say it out loud. And that word is abundance. Abundance, abundance, abundance. And I just repeat it to myself. In the car, I yell it a bit. And it might sound silly, but I'm telling you, when you really actually put this stuff into practice, it's like you can feel it, And even in like a lot of my work lately, reframing so much of the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves and changing that inner roommate that we have from this negative, critical voice that is actually hurting underneath that, right? Changing that to an affirming, a supportive, a compassionate voice for ourselves. And so abundance has just been coming up for me. And, I've said in the past, manifest things, and I don't know how you actually do that or how that actually works. But I do think that I am someone who forebodes joy as a vulnerability armor, right? And a large part of how that actually shows up is in those moments where you are feeling joy and immediately you want to snap yourself out of it and you think of the worst possible thing ever. One of the most classic, common examples of this is for a newborn mom looking at her child in the crib, feeling so overjoyed, feeling so happy, and then immediately needing to check and make sure that the baby's breathing, right? Having this image, this fear of, oh, wait, don't be this happy right now because what if something's wrong? I do that so much. That is my biggest vulnerability armor. And when I can step out of that a little bit and affirm myself and allow myself to sit in abundance, I hope I'm making sense for some of y'all. I just wanted to share this thing that I've been sitting in and reflecting on. And I know in a lot of the podcast episodes, I don't necessarily share what's going on for me. And it's usually the guest story, but I just felt like this was something really helpful to share because It sounds a little silly, but it feels different because it is what we're putting out there. It's the energy that we are sitting in. If I'm sitting in that energy of like, oh, wow, I'm driving down I-5 and the mountains around, it's so beautiful and I can see the water and wow, look at the sunset. Oh my gosh, life is so beautiful. I'm so happy. This is amazing. Oh my God. What if my tire blows out? Oh my God. And I have the top down. My head's going to scrape across concrete. Oh my God. I'm just going to die. And then, you know, like you play out the whole scenario. Oh, sorry. That's my plumber who's cute. It is that anxiety really that's coming up that is holding you back from being able to actually be present, right? And sit in that moment and allow yourself to have that present moment of joy. And for me, that's wanting to sit in abundance, that you can have that feeling abundantly, right? We don't have to have scarcity of joy, of pleasure. We don't have to limit ourselves of those feelings. And we also don't have to get ourselves in such a freaking panic, especially for me lately has been money. As a Cancer, I hoard my money and I am very frugal and I'm very particular on what I spend my money on. And, trying to sit in abundance that money comes and money goes. And I never know where I will be at tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. So be here now, in the most present way, in the most compassionate way, in the most supportive way, an affirming way that I can be. And lately that has just been in welcoming, harnessing, living in, believing in abundance. Abundance. That's my word. That has been my word. I hope that this word can help you in some way. I hope when you are driving to pick up your child, you say out loud to yourself, abundance. I hope that when you are running your errands and freaking out that you're going to be late to get to work, that you remind yourself of abundance. That when you are, doing anything literally that is creating you stress or triggering a panic or urgency or stress of scarcity, that you can just think and then vocalize. Actually say it. Abundance. I hope you say it right now with me. Abundance. You are worthy of abundance. Okay. Well, that was my little rant, and I hope it was helpful. And I am so excited to share with y'all today's guest. I have loved, honestly, it has been a thrill to follow her on Instagram, Kelly Yu. Y'all might already follow her. She is a notable social media influencer. She's a speaker and honestly a very celebrated mental health advocate. In 2018, she created and coined the Instagram and YouTube series Therapy Thursday to share just how beautiful and meaningful connecting with the most raw, vulnerable parts of yourself can be. Which is also why I felt comfortable to share my own little reflection here at the beginning of this episode, knowing that this whole conversation with Kelly Yu was around mental health. And I just love all of her vibes. Kelly aspires to inspire those who struggle with their relationship with their bodies, food, trauma, and recovery. She honestly should probably come on several other podcasts episodes because there's so many things we could get into. She's incredibly passionate about breaking the stigma on mental health through keynote speeches. She has spoken at Tufts University, Bradley, Purdue, the National Eating Disorder Association, and Dove's first ever virtual global summit. Kelly has overcome eating disorders, anxiety, and depression, and is grateful to share her journey and help others to help themselves, which, wow. I knew we was aligned, all right, y'all. I knew we was aligned, but the fact that part of her purpose is to help others help themselves just really hits me as well. And yes, that's because I'm reading from part of her bio. That's what I just said. And on my therapy website, literally 2016, when I was creating the foundation of what my practice was and who I was going to be as a therapist, my number one goal, approach, philosophy was that I am here to help you help yourself. Beautiful. Fucking love Kelly. I really hope y'all go follow her on Instagram, and I hope that you love this conversation with her. I absolutely loved it. So without any further ado and solo talking from myself, let's talk about it. All right. Welcome, Kelly Yu, to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. Taylor, thank you so much for having me on. And this is the first time we get to really meet and hang out, even though we're looking at each other on Zoom.
Yes, yes. This is the new way to hang, is on Zoom.
It's great. I mean, it's more intimate because I'm in your room. So, I mean...
Yes, this is true. Yes. We are in each other's homes right now. This is part of what I love about podcasting because I've followed you for a while and love everything that you share, and where I'm like, oh, I feel like I really fuck with this girl. And like, I love how authentic and transparent and like, while also having boundaries and just honest you are about sharing your story and about the things that you've been through. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing the way that you do on your platform, because I know it's hard and I know it's exhausting, but I also know it makes a huge difference.
Thank you. And I love that you love that I love talking about my butt and the fact that I can't poop. So, I mean, I am honored here, and I love your content and what you bring to this world. And actually, I heard of you through my wonderful friend, Kenzie Brenna, and so many others in our sweet community, just all over that social media world. Mm-hmm. I've seen you around, and so I'm really glad we're connecting, and you all get to hear some spiciness, I think, coming up there.
Oh yeah. Yes. All the spiciness. I love that you found me through Kenzie. Been wanting to have her on the podcast as well, and love her. I mean, she's fantastic. Yes. So, I'd love to know that. I would love to kind of start off just learning a little bit about kind of how you even got started building your platform on Instagram.
Taylor, I feel like you might think the same thing. It's so weird to call it a platform. I started just posting pictures of my food and being like, ooh, guys, I did this workout and I'm so healthy, because Instagram for me and a lot of us actually started when fitness was really big.
Yeah.
I felt like that was the biggest cult following environment of Instagram before all else blew up, right?
Oh yeah, all the before and afters. That Instagram was the place to go for all those before and afters and the meal plans.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So we were all bragging about how much sugar-free syrup we could eat and all these delts we were training in our legs and things like that. So that's really how I started. I had always struggled with eating disorders and body image, and my relationship with food. Binge eating had always been such a big part of my life. I was anorexic when I was 10. Obviously, I didn't know any of this until I was about 23.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, so coming to Instagram where everyone was really validating the disordered mindset was so validating.
Yeah.
And I got so swept up in it. I ended up gaining a big following starting from them. And it was just really fun to meet friends. It was the first time I had done an online community type of thing. And I really needed that because in my own personal life, I had a lot of difficulty connecting with people because I think of my inner struggles, eating disorder, the self-consciousness, the depression, anxiety. I was slightly agoraphobic even. When you just are suffering so much, you don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah. There's too much going on up here to have any kind of clarity or, feeling of safety to interact with other people. Absolutely.
Right. And so I just started feeling like I really belonged, but then I noticed that my behaviors were getting so much worse, or just they weren't getting better. I mean, we just replaced starving with macro counting with exercising profusely. And I think 2 years into it, I started just realizing in my real life I was so miserable, and I started going to therapy. And it wasn't, hell yeah, girl, that my podcast is called Therapy Thursday. That's how obsessed I am with it. But I felt like if I'm binge eating secretly and eating Pop-Tarts in my pantry, but then trying to work out twice a day in this world, there has to be someone else doing that. There just has to. So I remember my Instagram name used to be Kelly You Fit Taylor.
Oh, yeah, you went there.
I really was in it. And I decided one day I need to post about, hey, by the way, everyone, I have binge eating and I'm not okay. And this whole world that we're in, I'm not sure if anyone else is not okay, but I'm definitely not doing well. And I'm changing my Instagram name. And I think from then I changed, and I'm sure you saw this too, that the big coming up of the body positivity, self-love atmosphere, it all kind of imploded at once. So that was helpful. It kind of carried me into the next phase of actually trying to heal this really toxic relationship I had with myself my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever experience that in your journey? I mean, I think every human kind of has struggles with that stuff, but Instagram was like another thing.
Yeah. Woo. See, when I started off my Instagram, it was all my foster kittens and my green juices and my garden. It was literally just all my transition to like essentially being vegan and cats. That's all it was.
I love that. You have a big demographic right there.
Honestly, I'm working on going back to that content. I'm like, you know what? Once I move in and I can have fosters again, all the feed is just going to be cats and my plants. And that's my happy place. And that's how I started off on Instagram. But, I think my experience is very different. I think, growing up, I actually experienced a lot of kind of the disordered eating, restrictive eating, kind of almost like desperate exercising from my mom, who struggled a lot with her weight. And
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. And
hi, Mommy.
I, mostly because of genetics, am thin and what people look at as, quote unquote healthy or toned or fit body. So I went through my own kind of like image issues, but it wasn't necessarily around my weight. But there were definitely times where like I internalized that anti-fatness and would want to like hold on to like my thinness, and I've definitely done a lot of work to unpack all of that. But I think, I witnessed a lot of that through my mom and always just felt like, why? You don't have to go for an extra run because you want to have another glass of wine. Like, stop doing that to yourself. Like, I was just like, I love you and I see you how you are. And that doesn't matter to me if you weigh a little bit more than what you weigh now. Like, that doesn't change. I think I so badly wanted to help her in that I didn't take on that. Plus, I also wasn't experiencing the shaming and the anti-fatness from society in the way that she would. So it's a little bit of a different experience, but, definitely witnessed it with folks around me. I remember in middle school, my best friend was bulimic, and I went to therapy with her.
Wow.
Yeah, that whole friendship is a whole thing. She ended up calling me the N-word, and then I tried to run away from home. So it was really terrible, but
God. Okay, there's a big trauma bond going on there. I know a lot about trauma bonds.
Oh, yes. All right, we're going to take a short break right here because I got something I want to share with y'all. A little bit of a transition here. So, y'all know I've been doing so many things with the house renovation, and I have just been nonstop on the go. And y'all know I like to eat plant-based. I want to nourish myself. I want to eat whole foods and foods that are organic and that are just going to actually help nourish and fuel me. And I also just haven't had a lot of time to make things for myself. So I've been using Sakara, and I'm really, really excited to share them with y'all. I sincerely hope that y'all check them out because they make these like chef-crafted, plant-rich meals delivered to my door. And they also offer daily wellness essentials like supplements and herbal teas, all to help support your nutrition. They really have been saving me, okay? They have chef-crafted breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and they're all backed by cutting-edge science, nutrition to help boost your health, stoke that glow, and delivered fresh to your door. When I got the package, it literally said packaged, and it was on that date that it was delivered. And I was like, oh, I love this. This is exactly what I need. And it's all labeled too throughout the week. So I was like, really got through my week because of Sakara. So I hope that y'all check them out because right now Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off of their first order when they go to sakara.com/Taylor or enter the code Taylor at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/Taylor, and you can get 20% off your first order. So y'all take advantage of this discount and get yourself a chef-crafted, like nutritiously balanced, delicious chef organic whole food meal delivered right to your door. Again, that's 20% off your first order at sakara.com/Taylor. All right, and with all of that said, now that y'all know how I've been getting through my week while maintaining, actually nourishing my body, we can get back to the show. And again, major shout out to Sakara. Love having them be a sponsor of the podcast. So with all that said, we can get right back into it.
I love that you also brought up how certain relationships, whether it be to a parent or with friends, it can change you. It can mold you. It can also help you heal from stuff. Yeah. It can also get you sicker because those are the ways that we bond with people or we learn from people. And I do think that it's been helpful in a lot of ways to notice how much of a terrible relationship I had with myself was only kind of a reflection of my relationship with family and things like that. It had really nothing to do with food or body or weight. Those were great ways for me to fixate on things I could fixate on.
Yeah, the things that you feel like you can control.
Totally. And guess what? Never got the control that I wanted.
Yeah.
Never came.
Yeah. Well, when you say that this whole experience for you kind of started around 10, maybe in your work and in therapy and unpacking some of this experience, what do you think was kind of like the catalyst for that?
Oh. When I started going to therapy, I remember I went in and I said, hey, I have really bad binge eating. Help me fix this. Because that's a lot of the reasons why anyone really goes to therapy. You notice something, you're like, okay, it's bad. You label it as wrong and you want to change, hence fix. Yeah. And I remember I would go on and she would start going, so like, what's your family like? And I said, why are you, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a defense thing. I just felt like it was irrelevant.
Yeah, you're like, I don't get it. How is this connected?
Right. And then as we went deeper, she would really start asking about my dad. And I always knew as a kid there were issues in the family. I mean, I saw my parents fight a lot. The way that my mother was treated is obviously not right. And I think what's hard still about the time we live in, I think a lot of us have heard about narcissistic abuse, different types of neglect and maltreatment, but people still think abuse just means really verbally mean or smacking or hitting.
Yeah.
And I never understood that abuse looks like a lot of gaslighting, manipulating, making someone feel small, making someone dependent on you. And just that to me, as a child, I internalized it and knew, hey, something's wrong here, but I'm Asian. We didn't really talk about anything. We also didn't have the tools. So I think an eating disorder and hating myself was a pretty easy project because I didn't have to figure them out because I wasn't even allowed to ask about it. I would say, what's going on with him? What's going on with you? What's wrong with you? They'd say, be quiet.
Yeah. Well, it's also a way that you're coping. And I think that's like the piece, hopefully, of providing some kind of self-compassion to yourself that I think a lot of people often miss when it comes to, you know, whatever kind of behavior they're engaged to that's actually causing them harm or that they realize is, you know, a result of trauma of some kind, is that what you were doing was a way to cope. You were doing the best that you could with what you had and where you were at, and to not beat yourself up for that, right? Of like it, looking back, hindsight, you know, maybe not the way that you would want to choose to cope, but it was the best that you knew what to do to protect yourself, to continue to survive, usually.
100%. You all can't see me, but my nodding has become so insane at this point. I'm just a bobblehead listening to Taylor. It's true. There was nothing better I could have done. Like what else could I have had to help distract me, help keep me in my own, help me survive in some kind of way, help protect me. I love when you said protect. And we forget that when something is a struggle, we forget to see that something like an eating disorder for me was actually my best friend, and it was very hard to let go. And still binge eating and my relationship with food and the need for the numbing and the coping and the warm hug that a full belly of food gives me is so ingrained in me as a person. And it was hard for me to bring in that self-compassion piece that you just mentioned, because nothing works if it doesn't work. So if you keep doing it, there's a reason you're doing it and it's giving you something. And that's really okay.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
Well, and I think it's important to actually name that. And one of the things like I love, like in my work, asking people is, how does this serve you? Not in a judgmental way, not in a what's the perfect, how do I get a grade A in therapy answer, right? But what do you notice that was doing for you? And it could be, you know, it was a distraction. It could be it made you hate yourself, which you thought was what you needed to feel, right? But like of actually identifying, how is this serving me? In what ways am I wanting to continue this? In what ways am I holding on to this because it's doing something for me? And identifying that can sometimes be really scary.
So scary, because the acceptance piece was so easy for me to confuse as permission to do it. And they're not the same. For me to let myself understand what was going on, I think I perceived it as, oh, then I'll never stop doing it. No, you're going to keep doing it if you never accept it. Woo!
Yeah.
There's so much.
It's a process. It's layered. It takes time. It takes practice. You know, you started your journey with recovery how long ago?
I feel like I only really took it seriously when I was 22. So I'm 28 now. But I had started going to therapy, I think, when I was 20. You know, it just took me so long to look at my life. Yeah. I think the first year of therapy was just, whoa, didn't know how much was buried. Whoa, didn't know I even had feelings. And when I started going to therapy, it was just the first time anyone had really asked how I felt, and I wasn't interrupted. Right?
Major key alert. Yeah.
Because my parents are very loving and caring, and we do talk about feelings. But the problem in families is it's just easy to trigger other people's emotions. And so you can't always process your struggles with the person that's causing you distress.
Yes.
Doesn't really doesn't work out that much unless they're also going to therapy, which my family doesn't do. Does yours?
Mine does, but sometimes I'm questioning, awesome. Well, what's even going on in there? But
right.
I was going to ask you because earlier you were like, my family won't talk about things, being in an Asian family, I'm wondering how your relationship with them or how maybe your experience has impacted them with going to therapy. Have they felt supportive of you going to therapy? Have they kind of understood that? How have you navigated, being within an Asian family and being someone, I'm imagining the first person to go to therapy?
Well, the funniest thing, Taylor, they still say is, I'm so happy that you go to therapy.
I'm sure they are.
I'm so proud to know that you're healing and you're growing. And Taylor, you've taught our family so much. And I just am so glad you've brought us the lessons.
You mean you're so glad you're getting free therapy through my work?
The child, right? The child as the parent, as the therapist. And I do hold some anger about it, but not, it's not exclusively that. I also do appreciate that they are at least receptive and they do see the value of what I've learned and realized. I mean, I legit told my dad, hey, you literally have narcissistic personality disorder, just so you know. I'm not trying to be mean. I just learned that. And that's why I dated one for 7 years. And that's why I'm traumatized. Just want to let you all know that me and Lauren, who's my sister, are just like real confused and fucked up and don't want to, get around people. We don't trust anyone and we're scared and hypervigilant, but we get it. You guys didn't know anything.
And we love you. Have a great day.
It really, you got to laugh at some point because you can't change people unless they want to change. But I'm so thankful. They really do ask me how I feel now. They really do bring it up. They listen, they reflect, and it's more than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a really beautiful thing to be able to share with them. And I think, as you bring up, like you are the child in this scenario. I think while you can, on one hand, feel grateful or happy or good, about the fact that they're receptive to this, in the same hand, you can also feel like really resentful and hurt and feel like this is unfair and feel like your inner child is triggered because ultimately that inner child wants to feel cared for. Ultimately, that inner child wants to feel seen and wants to feel held and guided and supported by that parental figure. So it's a really weird responsibility and burden that I think a lot of people in our generation, and especially within families of color, that you have to take that on to, help educate your parents, to care for your parents in a different way, to do essentially the work of the family healing, which is a lot.
So it's so much. And it is so strange to be put in a position. Well, I also really put this on myself. I mean, as a codependent person who obviously happens because you're a child of a narcissist. You either become a narcissist or codependent. You can't be healthy.
Yes, but I would not say that you put that on yourself. I wouldn't say you put that on yourself because now you're blaming yourself.
Right. Like I learned how to feel like it was my job to fix them because of the family dynamic and the roles we had and the games we played in the family. I felt, my sister is older and she kind of took the road of being kind of dissociative, which makes total sense as well. But for me, I'm the one who was like, hello, you are also like that too, Taylor. I mean, with what you do is we want to talk about the things that are being buried and it doesn't feel good to hide.
Oh yeah.
And I can't stand it.
No, it literally, like I have a visceral reaction to it when someone like doesn't want to talk about something that is so important to talk about. And I mean, you kind of touched on this a minute ago where, when you first went to therapy, it's kind of like, holy shit, especially in your early 20s. families, because there is so much to be unpacked. Because when you are, child to essentially 18, 19 years old, all of your experience are essentially you being conditioned how to operate in society, how to operate within your family system. And when you get out of that and you start unpacking that and you start kind of finding who you are as a person, oh my goodness, I could not talk about it. I was like, everyone in my family knew. They're just like, oh, Taylor's going to talk about this shit. And
Taylor?
I was like, damn straight I'm going to talk about it, because y'all are Italian and you don't want to talk about anything, but then you want to sit here and yell at each other for no reason. I was like,
oh my. No, and so stuck in their ways. And a narcissist doesn't like when you're finding yourself.
No.
Hates it. They're like, oh, you have an identity? Haha. Yeah, right. They don't want you to be independent. And one of the funniest things, just reflecting on what you just said, is my mom, I love her to death. Mm-hmm. She's great. She really is good at talking about feelings and stuff, but she still automatically says this to me so much. She says, do we really have to analyze this? I'm like, you mean just speak? Like just like a debrief, like about what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that. It's like, oh, yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, I get told that, I'm making problems out of nowhere, and that I'm just creating drama just to have the drama. And I'm like, wait, no, this is literally here, and I'm just trying to name it because it's fucking with me. I'm like, this is not me creating problems. I'm just opening your eyes to the fact that there is a problem that you don't want to see, because it doesn't impact you, because it serves you to ignore it. But it hurts me for it to be ignored.
Yeah. Like you said, this is already it's here.
Yeah.
Like, this is happening, and you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's you. And, that's still very hard for me. Mm-hmm. But, I think the hard part too was learning how to branch out and try to find those people. And I'm still really struggling with building an intimate friend circle, or finding partners who are able to have a lot of the skills that I don't have the skills. I got them. I found them. I built them. And it's sometimes still difficult. We're living in 2021 where everyone's woke on Instagram, yet interpersonally, it's still such a vulnerable thing to be open to discourse and be open to opening your heart. And, we're also really all scared of red flags and it's a lot.
It is. I'll be your intimate friend. Can we be intimate friends? Because I like
you. No, we are.
are.
No, I love you. Like, I really do. And we're not even trauma bonding. We have healed. So this is a healthy bond.
It's like, wait, you're into healing. I'm into healing. How do we support each other in our healing?
No, for real. I know. I love it. And I just think that hearing about your family as well is so comforting to know, because I think growing up, I just thought, oh, my family's the weird one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. Because I was like, there's no one else experiencing such a weird parent and seeing all these fights and just feeling so confused. And that is the really cool thing about talking about it, is when you say it, you also just get to hear that it happened. I think a lot of us just keep it moving.
Yeah, it's
not living in the past. It's just, oh, it happened. Cool.
Yeah, well, it's allowing space for it to be valid, because so often as we're growing up, these things are not named, and we are just moving along, and we're kind of like, we don't necessarily have the language or the education to name it. And I think not only does it help provide a space for it to be valid for ourselves when we say it out loud, but it also, I think, helps in a way kind of normalize that, like, you're not alone in it, and someone else will be able to relate, and then someone else will be able to relate to what that person shares. And it just kind of has like a domino effect. And, every scenario is going to be different, but let me tell you, like, we all got shit. We all got childhood shit. We all got adolescent shit. We all got finding ourselves young adult shit. If you didn't have shit, you went through 2020. Now you got shit.
I know. I think about my therapist said something so significant to me, so after I was in a really long-term relationship for about 7 years. It was very on and off. Obviously at the end I found out he was a narcissist, and I mean, clearly it wasn't evident through all the manipulation, lying and cheating to me, because I was so brainwashed, and I almost feel I still often feel very insecure about saying that. And just because unless you've experienced it, you truly can't imagine that someone would be that delusionally easily manipulated, because I'm not a dumb person. But when you trust someone and you love someone and they're so good at what they do, you die off and they take over your head.
Yeah.
Like I just would believe everything they said, obviously with a gut feeling, but you ignore it. I think, because all the other things in our lives, whether it be the family who kind of teaches you to ignore your gut, or your eating disorder teaches you to ignore your gut physically, it's just, it's all the same. And so my therapist anyway was saying, everyone's got issues. And when you're looking for a partner, it's not about finding someone who doesn't have them. It's just finding someone whose issues can mix with yours. Okay.
Yeah. This is part of what made that song really hit. Cause I got issues. Cause you got issues.
Yes.
I got them too. God. Whatever it was.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah. With Julia Michaels and
yes.
Yeah. It's such a good song. It's true.
Just that part of like, cause I got issues, but you got them too. It's
right.
Like, oh yeah, we do all got fucking issues. But it is, I think, not only finding like what your therapist said of like issues that kind of mesh with yours, but also like issues that are being healed and allowing space for each other's healing, I think is so, so important. Because, I mean, like you said, you ignore the gut, because maybe within the family system, but I think also especially for, women within our society, within our culture, like, you are going to be taught to ignore things, because from our overall society, men are right. From our overall society,
Shut up and put up.
Yeah, you should be happy that you were chosen and that you're in this long-term relationship. You're so successful. Look at you in your long-term relationship.
Right? It's like, oh, you guys have been together for so long. Yeah.
Yep.
Correct. We're just doing the same cycle. And I don't even like them.
Yeah.
That's the strange thing that we often see, not even toxic relationships, just relationships in general. It's, I've noticed just with friends or people, or just reflecting on myself, you can really love someone, but not like them at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't even like anything about you, but I can't live without you. And that, everyone, if that's your scenario, not calling you out, just saying it.
See, I think that there is something to that though. Cause I want to say it was in The Office with Jim and Pam, where there was a line where at one point, one of them said something about like, I don't really like you right now, but I love you. And I think that like always has kind of stuck with me, because yes, I think back to like my highly toxic, very abusive relationships where that was true how you just shared. And like that was a no-go. But I think we do have within even like our healthy relationships moments, it's not an overall like, I don't like you at all. But we do have these moments where it's like, you know what? I love you. And also in this moment, you're really upsetting me and I don't like you very much.
And that's a healthy thing to be able to say. So when you're in a toxic relationship, you don't feel safe enough to say that. That's one of the biggest keys that I realized. If I said that, there would be a tornado, like a fit, like a child freaking out. And I would probably have done the same, because I was such an insecure person with very low self-worth. So I was perpetuating the cycle as well. If obviously in a lot of toxic relationships, there tends to be an abuser and a codependent, or a narcissist and a codependent, but we're both still super terrible. Like, there's not one angel and one devil ever, because you wouldn't participate in it if it didn't help you. But I look at us now, girl.
Yep.
Not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard. I'm wondering what the process has been like for you with how you perceive your ex? I know when I got out of my I know when I got out of my first relationship was the most toxic, abusive, and all of the ways relationship. And for a long time, I really like demonized him and like just felt so much anger and frustration at him for all the ways he like fucked me up and all the ways he hurt me. And as we got older, and granted, this is like, I was young, I was a teenager and all of this. So I've had a lot more time, probably than maybe since your 7-year relationship ended. But, you know, over the years of actually being able to feel some kind of like compassion for him and like humanizing him and recognizing where, you know, he had his own traumas. He was very clearly suffering and very clearly hurting. And to be able to sit with that and it not invalidate the ways that I've been hurt, but to also just humanize him and try to have a better understanding of like why everything happened the way that it did is a really hard process. And I'm just kind of wondering, you know, what that process has been like for you with maybe your perception of your ex.
Oh, I love that you're asking that because it is, I think it would be really important for me to share right now, just like it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it didn't really follow the classical path of like how you heal from stuff, but it eventually got on, you know, the 5 stages of like grief or loss or things like that. But in the beginning, it was I was 25 and going to a couples counselor.
Yeah.
You know, I was really young and I was basically like, hey, can you stop cheating? He's like, no. And I'm like, okay, so like maybe we should talk to someone. Like I was just doing anything to try to salvage it. And I really cared about him and I knew he was struggling with other issues and I wanted to be there for him. So I said, okay, let's go together because I'm your partner and I care about you.
Okay.
I've known you since we've been 19. Like I do care. So I want to sit by you and help you. I think I started becoming his enemy because anyone who gets in the way of what you want to do, even if they're trying to help, it's kind of like an addict with a sober friend. It's just you become the one they hate. So it was only after he and I had a really big blowout fight of me basically saying, hey, I think we should really just split up. Like, I love you, but this is not good for us. I think we're just tanking each other. He didn't like that, of course. He did something really insane and I grabbed a duffel. We lived together. I grabbed a duffel, grabbed a pillow, got in my car and I never went back. I was like, you need to move out. I'm not going to talk to you until I'm not going to talk to you again. I'm just going to come back and live here when you get out. And the only reason I did that is because the couples counselor that we are going to, I went back to the therapist and I said, hey, this happened. And he sat me down. It was only 10 minutes of a session. Usually it's like an hour. Yeah. But he just said, hey, I'm not diagnosing him, but I think he has narcissistic personality disorder. I think you're a codependent and this is never going to work. I have never heard a therapist ever be so direct in my life.
That was bold.
So it was so sad because I loved him and I wasn't ready to let go, but I just forced myself. I had to go no contact, which like you do have to, no contact is this policy that a lot of people in toxic abusive relationships have to do or else you will always go back. There's just no, I've gone back 3,000 times.
Yep.
So the beginning first at least 6 months was scared of realizing all the other issues he had as I was unpacking things. And there's so many more issues. It wasn't just like randomly cheating with a girl. It was just a lot of trauma that he had a lot of struggles. So I just felt bad and I missed him. And it was just like half my body was gone, you know? And then I started feeling angry. You know, I'd get angry, like, how could you treat me like that? How could you do that? I hate you. But I think most of it was me trying to tell myself I hated this person because you kind of have to get angry to heal. You have to get angry. Yeah.
And to not go back. Let go. To not go back, too. I mean, for me, it was definitely, you know, a way to help cope of like, okay, this is how I don't have a relationship with him and how I can protect myself is that you are terrible and you are bad.
Right. And then, so this happened at the end of, this happened in the beginning of 2019. So right now it's July 2021. And only within the last few months, I really just see it for what it is. And I really just feel like we really loved each other. We tried.
Yeah.
We both had our issues. I was so broken. I was toxic. I was not nice so much of the time. I was broken. He fed off of it. I fed off of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's still a lot of resentment, but I have a lot of compassion for the love he did give me, because I did need it for so much, and he provided so much. And a lot of people who have struggles have two sides of them. One side's very loving, the other is a monster. And so I think that's maybe what you and I often could hold on to, is the nice part of them. But unfortunately, that monster just got to take over 99% at some point.
Yeah. And I think like one of the really scary parts for me was at one point I had to kind of acknowledge that like part of me liked the monster. Part of me, like, this is where I'm like that Ariana Grande, Pete Davidson meme of like cancers, like seeking like emotionally unstable men, where like part of me enjoyed the monster and that served me in certain ways.
The chaos is sexy, my girl. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're crazy. Yeah, same. And so, because that's, I think, what I sought out when I was so bouncing off the walls with my struggles and hiding so much of it. And I remember honestly craving someone who was also sick, because I felt so ashamed of how sick I felt internally. And people don't understand how much I connect with that Pete Davidson, Ariana Grande relationship. Like, my friends will say, I don't see it. I'm like, but even if you're not someone who prefers that, how can you not see it? Like, it's so psychologically, logically obvious.
Yeah.
Like, the connection is right there.
Yeah. I felt so attacked when that meme first came out. I was just like, ouch. Wow. Why you got to out me like that? Damn. But
I know. And it is so sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's, you know, I think these things sound really fucked up as we say them, but it's also the truth. And I think it's really important to name it and to have space for it, because otherwise it kind of just stays inside you and starts to eat you up, and it just kind of continues to like present itself in these different ways. And, you know, it doesn't sound great to say, but like, I think it's true for a lot of folks.
And if we don't look at it, it's just going to keep happening again and again.
Yeah.
And it's so tiring.
Yeah. So then how has your dating been? I mean, you want to talk about that?
We're talking at a very fascinating time of my life right now. Okay. Because I have not spoken to a dude. Like, I mean, you know, okay. So even though I was in that long-term relationship, you know, you break up and get back together so many times. Yeah. I've dated other people, you know, between I've had many small relationships, hookups, hangouts, whatever, because can't be alone. I could in the past. I cannot recognize that girl.
Yeah.
Like, I love you so much, but whoa, like I know you're going to therapy, but like, you really need to get, that poor thing was just flailing around like, anyone, love me, anyone?
Yep. Yeah.
So after that long-term relationship, I ended up dating someone else for a good 8 months or 6 months or 8 months. And he was wonderful. Like, I thought he was so great. And turns out he had some addiction issues. Cool. You know, you just you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like I referenced earlier, is when your therapist says to you, it's not that issues are a problem, it's how they mesh with yours. And I'd already been with someone with addiction. I'd already struggled with my own addiction to weed. I actually just celebrated a year of sobriety after smoking every day for 10 years. So it's kind of just nothing against you, dude. I have to care about myself. And it was hard to let go. But I said, if I don't start understanding that I can't do it all, I'm just going to die. So yeah, this year, I actually recently have started talking to someone, and no one knows that yet. But
how are you feeling about it?
I feel really good because I feel like a different person. and I've never interacted with a person in a way where I'm not so self-conscious, or I'm not trying to make them my boyfriend. Or I am in this phase of my life where I think I just want to be myself, and I don't want a boyfriend. I really want to meet people and just explore and be like sexually free and like feel like I get to just choose. And I think even if I met someone I really, really liked, I know you can't control how you feel, but I wouldn't want to let myself be in a relationship for just a while, you know?
Yeah.
Because it is hard to find yourself. For me, it's hard to stay myself if I'm in a relationship at this point in my life. Yeah. It's not that I never will be able to, but one hard thing that I think a lot of us feel is, oh, well, you can do it. It's like, no, I can, but I also acknowledge maybe not now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah.
Right? Because people are like, no, you'll be fine. It's like, no, I know, but I don't need to take more on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that just also speaks to like your awareness about yourself and what your needs are, because you might recognize, maybe part of you feels like you maybe want that, but then recognizing what you actually need at this point in your life, right. And that maybe just that exploration and that freedom and that adventure of exploring yourself and how you show up in these different ways in your life is perhaps more the priority than, I want to feel connected, right? I want to feel like I have somebody side by side, kind of maybe starting to slip down the slope of revisiting some of that codependency and finding your worth in someone else and all of that, and wanting to be like really aware of that whole process and any of those, behaviors that might start to resurface, and kind of going slow with yourself.
Yeah. And you know what, Taylor? I don't want to know how you are every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I just don't, it's not that I don't care. I just don't need to know. And I don't need you to ask me, because that's what I was just used to, was like someone just, I know a lot of relationships aren't like that, but they just can become like very, routine-ish and stuff. And I'm wondering for you, like what's on your end? What's going on in your life?
Well, I decided to implement a very scary boundary where I basically decided I'm, for the time being, not going to share anything at all related to my dating life. I think in the past, first of all, sometimes it's just scary in general because people found me from being on the show. People off the bat were just so invested in my dating life, right? And that's like one of the most vulnerable parts of my life. That is like my heart is in that 1,010%. And, with everything, with my tweets coming back up, my partner was getting like death threats on my behalf, and there's just so much that I feel like I have to protect myself from with being a public person, that I just don't want to expose the people in my life to that. And I want to like just protect and nurture that romantic relationship. And so I was kind of like, well, this is a really weird part, and, like it changes up the way that I go about my life and the way that I share my life on social media. But it feels so much better, at least for now, that like I'm not talking about if I'm with someone, if I'm not with someone, if I'm out doing things, who I'm doing them with, like all of that. I just, it's strange and it's weird because I like know people want to know, and I feel like I love talking about it. I do, but I know that it's not safe for me to talk about publicly, and it's not safe for the people in my life to be talked about publicly in that way either. So it's really sad, and really I hate it. And so part of me wants to fight against it and be like, no, fuck that shit. I'm still gonna be able to share and not let you like ruin my shit. But I can't do that. I have to,
Well, I really commend you for that. And honestly, for me, I've always never shared like any about like the people, like when I never have ever posted, like no one would ever have known I had a boyfriend for the last how many years I've been online. And it was just because it didn't feel relevant. Like what I feel is relevant is when I talk about the way I feel about certain things, and has nothing to do with exposing, you know, the person or sharing details about the relationship and stuff. And I think for you, it's definitely such a shift, and I'm really proud of you for taking and doing what you need, because just like what you said, what started you is also probably why it feels even more invasive when you know someone wants to know something about you. You feel like once you feed it to them, it's kind of like a vulture situation. Oh yeah. And even if they're not acting that way, it can feel this way. Yes. And so I actually was just telling my therapist too recently, it's strange that what we do online, because a lot of it's just sensationalizing our real life, and you figure out ways to make everything you do look a little clickbaity, and it's weird. Yeah.
It is very strange what we do online.
It is. And I just said to her, you know, I just don't want to keep screaming for attention. Yeah. Because that is what sorry everyone, it is what at least I do. So it's gotta be what we're all doing. And then she said, okay, so let's unpack that. Have you had to do that in your life? I'm like, correct. You know, you really gotta be real sick. You gotta be real struggling to get the fam to pay attention, to get the partners to pay attention, but you also don't want to bother anyone. So it's really interesting to look at kind of how social media for me used to be really much more of like a fun playground where it was like a little bloggy, kind of everyone was really invested, but there's just so many people on it that sometimes it just feels like if you're not screaming and crying or super fun, it's like, who gives a shit?
I ask myself that literally every day.
All of us do. It's really sad.
Who fucking cares? Why do I need to post something? Why do I need to share this? And then there's times where I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I have to share this on social media.
I know. And the scary part of it is that we're all noticing too. It's become a business. It's become jobs. It becomes and so how strange. I mean, I did it every single day with a full-time job as an academic researcher at a university, secretly hiding that I had I had a YouTube, I had an Instagram, I was making videos. It's like the polar opposite of like the life I was living and the life I was doing online. And I made $0 from it. So I think what I see now on Instagram, that's why I think it's so strange to me.
Yeah. Well, now it is your work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and I think all of us know this. When something you love becomes your job, it changes. You know, if you love singing and you start only doing gigs, you're like, what the hell? If you love knitting and you start having to make commissions for people, you're like, hate knitting. Yep. Not you hate it. I don't want to project my experience on everyone, but it changes. Yeah. And I hate that it changes, but you feel that way ever?
You know, this whole last year, I think, really fucked me up in a lot of different ways. Before, I would say like 2019, I really wasn't doing a lot of partnerships on Instagram.
There was none. Zero.
I had to fight if I wanted a decent rate. It was brands that I wasn't super excited about, but I was like, you know, there'd be a few here and there that I'd be really like, oh, this is the kind of stuff I want to do. Wow, I'm so happy this came to me, and it's also paying me barely anything, but you know, it's something. So okay, cool. You know, I'll do it while I can, but I didn't approach it like a actual business. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, sure, this brand wants me to do this thing, okay, and you know, kind of right before COVID hit, it kind of started amping up where I was like, oh, this is kind of turning into like a business. This is kind of turning into like actual work that I'm like invested in.
Yeah, because influencership and things like that, influencer partnerships and this whole world really did not exist fully until probably end of 2018, and it was just beginning. So it's still quite new.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the way I engage, you know, obviously after the show, it all becomes a popularity contest, and it's like, well, who's getting the most followers? Who's getting the most likes? Blah, blah, blah. And once I left my relationship from the show, I kind of just hit a moment of like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm going to post what I want to post, and here's me picking strawberries, and here's me at a farm, and this is the stuff I like, and this is the stuff I want to post, because I felt like I was trying to perform for people and to show up in this way that I thought and I knew that they wanted me to show up in,
Right. It's not like it's not all in your head. That's the hard part too. When people just say, post what you want. Listen, people follow you for a reason. And so it is a duty to deliver. It's not one or the other. Of course I can do whatever I want, but I can't also only always do just whatever the fuck I want to do.
Yeah. I post the photo I want to post and it'll get 1,500, 2,000 likes. I post the one that I know people are going to want, 11,000.
Isn't that scary? Okay.
And I'm like, how the fuck does this happen?
Let's talk about the depressive state that follows that, how sickening it is to notice for me. How do I still get affected? Like, who cares? But guess what? I guess I do. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like,
you can analyze it's business. You want. So you're also looking at it, and it's like, on one hand, yes, it's your like personal stuff of what you're like, oh, I really cared about that and nobody else does apparently. But then it's also this like, oh, well, now that lessened my engagement. And if I have to post an ad today or tomorrow, how do I then get that up?
Scary.
And it's like very strange. I mean, 2020 was like literally the most accelerated, just wild roller coaster of Instagram partnerships. And now that I've like had a break from it, I'm like, I don't know how I was operating like that. How in the world was I creating and operating and engaging in the way that I was?
Well, you know why? It's because the whole world was not, that's why
I was in trauma.
Correct. You're on a lot of us, right? There were so many times, I think, in 2020, we were all, just really depressed and unable to do anything. But also because we were not allowed to do anything because of the state of the world, we were hyper productive and focused. But okay, what I'm curious about is I've heard so many people make a comment of like, oh, if I just got on a reality show, I would get so many followers. And I think that is like when I hear that, I'm like, is that the world we're living in right now where that would be the life goal?
Apparently.
Isn't that just interesting to hear? I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when people do ask me, oh, how'd you get your following? Or like someone's like, they don't know I was on the show and they're just like, oh, you have a big following, and whatever. And I have to explain like, look, I have a hella respect for folks who just grow their following based on sharing their story, and I didn't do that, I mean, I guess in some way, but not really, where I'm like, I didn't intentionally seek this out. I didn't, it was not a given, especially as a woman of color going on a show with the audience it has. And at the time, it's not a guarantee that anybody's going to give a shit about you. There are many girls that walk away with, 5,000 followers, maybe 10. So it is not a guarantee, but I think that has become the focus for many people. And I'm kind of like, well, be careful what you wish for. And I don't know if you know what kind of audience you're about to get. Okay. I guess if you want to make some money, that's what you want to do.
I know. It is so strange to have something now where you can make money because I just did it for so long with not, and I feel guilty about it. Also, we grew up really, really poor. So for me, the scarcity mindset and never having any money has always just been how I am, and taking out loans, paying off loans, paying everything for myself, never moving back home. But that's like a normal experience. And I think a lot of maybe teens and young people don't know that that's most of us. So what you see is like, I just have lived such I can't show you a documentary of my life, and I'm not going to make one. I wish I could. That would be sick, but no.
But I love that you are, I think, similar to how I was operating, being intentional about who you do partner with. And you just did one with, I believe it was a probiotic for IBS. And I was I love that you... I have other feelings and thoughts that I'll share with you after, but, I think I love seeing women just own their literal shit and not feeding into a lot of the patriarchal messaging and gender stereotyping of women and how they're supposed to show up. And I just I was like, oh, look at her on her squatty potty. I was like, yes, girl, squatty potty for life. I was like, yes, that is a key.
Well, when I saw your DM response to me, so everyone, Taylor is so sweet. She's referring to, so over the last 2 years, I've really opened up finally about this inner struggle I've had my whole life, which is I've been constipated my entire life. And it really fucks with you, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, with the eating disorder and feeling like bloated, full of poop. Literally, I mean, I've had to get colonics because I didn't poop for a week and a half.
Yeah.
And it's like painful and scary. And I used to think it was really gross. But the more that I was suffering internally and in secret and not sharing it with people online, which I don't have to, but it's something that I felt so disgusted by in my own struggle that I would never want other people to feel like it's weird or bad. So I felt like I should share what's going on. And I started talking about, hey, I'm super constipated all the time. I can't poop. I started seeing a gastroenterologist more seriously. I've been seeing one for many years for like acid reflux and gastroesophageal reflux disease. And then I started having to see a colorectal surgeon. I got Botox injections in my butt, like in my pelvic floor things. And I started just talking about that because I felt really stuck and I had to dedicate so much time to seeing all these doctors for months and months. And people often will just say, take some Benefiber and call it a day. And I just felt there's got to be some other people, especially people who have had a history of disordered eating, to be unable to use the bathroom in a way that's functional. Yeah. There's such a big connection between not having a strong relationship with your body, hence not strong relationship with your bowels. Yeah. And it's so funny now that I'm just someone who people think is like the poop girl on Instagram, or the lack thereof, I guess.
Well, I love it that you're being honest and sharing that, because I think even just your thought process along it, because I've felt very similarly. Like if I'm struggling with this internally and I'm shaming myself on it because I think I'm the only one, or because I think I'm somehow flawed and broken because of this, I need to say it. I need to share it, because that will break it down. That will help it to lose its power, and it will remind me that ultimately I'm not alone. And I love that you're doing this, that you're sharing this about constipation and IBS, because it's not gross. It's literally your body.
No, not at all.
And I think just take a whatever it was and call it a day. Like that's not really addressing what's going on.
You got to take your probiotics, peeps. You got to go to the doc. You got to actually let yourself see what's going on, because the suffering is not your life. It's not normal. Like it isn't. It shouldn't be this way. But it is funny when I think about all the things I post, and I'm like, oh, there's guys that would see it. And I don't give a shit, because guess what? You're going to have to really know it if you're ever in my life. You're going to really know a lot. So you better get ready.
Yes. That has been my exact thought. Even like in the past, sometimes when like I would share, I'm tweezing my lip hair, like something I used to be so insecure about, where before I'd go to post, I'd be like, oh, what if like some guy sees this? And then I was like, I got 93% women, and whatever guys are going to see it, they're going to know eventually when I like don't tweeze for a month that like I have fucking hair on my lip. And what, are they really not going to kiss me because of that? If they're not, then we got bigger problems.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's so much growth, I think, that I've noticed only really with the help of therapy is when you fully accept yourself, you actually want other people to see you in totality. So I'm not interested in a guy ever even seeing me as like a pretty version of myself. Dude, I don't care at all. But how long did that take? So long. Yeah. Because we're not going to be having fun all the time. I'll probably just be complaining about having shit in 2 days. That's what's going to be what we're doing. Yes. So
I love it. I wish Chicago was closer, and you're just amazing. I'm so happy that you came on here today and that we were able to actually like chat and connect because I love everything you share, and I'm like so happy for you and the healing that you're doing and how you're sharing it, because you're definitely helping other people. And I'd love for you to maybe kind of share all the places where people can find you and how people can support the work that you're doing, and kind of, join your online community.
Thank you, Taylor, for having me. I think you're such a good interviewer, by the way. Not even interviewer, just like the conversation we've had. I forgot we were recording this. And I love the work that you are doing and the space you provide for conversations like this. And your energy is just so magnetic. You all can find me on Instagram. Just search Kelly U. That's the letter U. You can find me on YouTube, where I talk about recovery, body image, constipation, just sharing my life. And I have a podcast called the Therapy Thursday podcast. You can find it everywhere. And it's every single Thursday, where I learn lessons from my own therapy sessions and I share them with you. Taylor, you're the best.
Yes, you are too. I love that that's what you're doing with your podcast. This is amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Mwah.
All right, that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for making it all the way through and keeping your ears, your hearts, and your minds open. It would mean so much to me if you could take a second or two after listening to this episode to leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you're enjoying about the show. I love reading, what your favorite episodes are, where you guys listen, and definitely feel free to share this with a friend. I mean, part of how we break down the stigmas around these topics is by talking about them, right? And sharing them with more people. So definitely share the podcast. And again, really wanting to include all of you in this podcast. So if you have questions or you want to share a thought or an experience, please send in a voice memo to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com. And I'm really excited to keep having these conversations and breaking down these stigmas. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time.